Where are we at in society today? Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Go ahead. Make my day.
Every single week, I put my freaking heart and soul into this. I don't go out there and laugh. It's not funny. It's not fun. Nothing's funny to me. I don't want to go out there and get embarrassed on Monday Night Football in front of everybody.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
So ain't nothing changed from yesterday. Still the same person I was yesterday. And I got the same thing for you that I had yesterday. You know why I'm here.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
Pretty appropriate, don't you think, that we end that little open sequence with Herm Edwards, who used to be the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, who are now getting ready for another Super Bowl. Hi, everybody, and welcome on a Thursday morning. X's and BrO's, Monday through Friday, 6 till 9 throughout the great state of Michigan, Kansas City, and Philadelphia, putting in their final prep work today, tomorrow, as they get ready for Sunday's final football game of the year. And the Chiefs tried to do something nobody else has ever done. 3 in a row. Meanwhile, Darius Garland nails a deep three from the logo at the buzzer, and the Cavs stun the Pistons 118-115. When you do as much as you can to win a basketball game, like Cade Cunningham did last night, and I know there were some, not very many, but a turnover here, a turnover there, a missed shot here, a missed shot there. Overall, I thought one of his better games. Like, we can look at statistics and we can see numbers and associate triple doubles and so on and so forth. That dude had 38 points, carried that team on his back down the stretch, made massive shots, and even really smart decisions like that. The deep three to keep his team in it super, super late, I forget exactly what time, was really impressive. I mean, nothing but cord, right? But you can say Cleveland with some stupid fouls, but 2 threes where he had the presence of mind to at least try to take the shot, so they did foul him, and then he makes all the free throws to keep his team right there with Cleveland down the stretch was really impressive. Detroit forced 23 turns. Forced might be a little bit of a stretch. Cleveland turned it over 23 times, but they overcame it by knocking down 48% from the field and hitting 16 triples. The Pistons are now a game under 500. Cunningham, 38 points, by the way. And more than that. I shouldn't have, I complain about constantly looking at the number of points a player scores, and that's the first thing that I give you. But, the 9 assists, the 7 boards, and only 1 turnover. That's it. So he treasured the basketball. And I get it. He shot well below 50%. He was 11 for 29, I believe. 11 for 29. Okay. And 3 for 10. Not great. I get it. I'm talking about down the stretch. All right. When we talk about games and when they get away from teams and how certain points of the game where you can lose it. In the NBA, rarely, and I mean rarely, are you losing games in the first half. There's too many opportunities to get out and run, right? So Cleveland up by 8 after 1 quarter. Detroit gets a little bit closer in the second, and then Cleveland ends up winning that quarter by 1. So you're down 9 at the break, and you're, oh man, come on. Do you ever really think your team is out of it if it's down by 9, even late in the third, even beginning of the fourth in the NBA? I don't. So I wasn't too worried about it. You didn't like some of the shot selection, but you know what? I didn't like some of the shot selection from Darius Garland on the right wing with a off-balance 3, and he hit it. Sometimes those mistakes are covered up a little bit because it's a make. What's that old cliche? No, yes, because he hit it, right? Pistons shoot under 40% from the floor. I mentioned Cunningham with 38 points. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 20. Had a big 3 from the left wing. in the fourth as well. But the Pistons are now 25-26 on the year, 12-13 at home. So a drop in a game below 500, and it's another example. Cleveland plays without Donovan Mitchell, and they still win. They play without Donovan Mitchell, and they still shoot 48%. So Garland had a good game. Evan Mobley had 30 points. It shows you, unfortunately, how far you got to go. And it's a ways to go. So sure, you get a trade in there, and that helps because the trade deadline is this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Pistons really the only team with cap space. And apparently they swing a deal with the Sixers, KJ Martin Jr. to Detroit and 2 second-rounders for nothing. So you'll take it, right? You get an athletic guy who can come in and help you off the bench. It's not Jimmy Butler going to the Warriors. It's not Chris Middleton from Milwaukee to Washington for Kyle Kuzma, which was an interesting trade, at least in my eyes. I like both players. Would have loved Kuzma coming to Detroit. I think he's a hell of an offensive player. Anyway, but it's a player who can help you the rest of the way. I wondered a little bit last night while you're watching the game and you're watching Malik Beasley struggle. And it's not very often that he does. I think he's been a major reason for Detroit's turnaround. I like him as a player a lot. You're going to have off shooting nights. 1 for 8, 0 for 6. 1 for 8 from the floor, 0 for 6 from deep. I thought Detroit did a lot of things. Like if you would have told me at the end of the night, they're only going to turn it over 11 times and force 23 turns. That's a big stat. When you say they'll play even on the boards, that's a big stat, I thought. Unfortunately, the shooting, both from the floor, from 3, is what did them in. Wasn't at the line. They were really good at the line, 25-28. But it was their shooting. How much of that is shot selection? How much of that is them just having an off night? I would chalk most of it up to the latter. 118-115. That's the final. And Cleveland wins it. Michigan was dominant inside. They outscored Oregon 36-24 in the paint. They held the Ducks without a field goal for the final 3:18. And they win it 80-76 at Chrysler Center. Danny Wolf had 15 points, 12 rebounds. That's back-to-back double-doubles for the Michigan big man. And that's 10 double-doubles on the year for Wolf, who leads the conference in that category. U of M is now 17-5 on the year. They are 9-2 in the conference. They are perfect at home. And there's a part of me that thinks the two teams in this state, Michigan and Michigan State, might be the biggest surprises in the Big Ten. And for Michigan State, it may not be a huge surprise, although I think for most people it would be. It's how they've come to their record, both overall and in Big Ten play, with the balance. With Michigan, don't tell me you saw their bigs playing this well, because most of us didn't know who Danny Wolf was when he came from Yale. He's been really good. So an impressive win for Michigan. Red Wings are off until Saturday. That's when they welcome Tampa to town. And Pete Alonso re-ups with the Mets on a 2-year deal worth $54 million. But the second year is an opt-out for the player, similar to what Jack Flaherty has for the Tigers. And perhaps because it's not a massive deal, long-term wise, maybe that means Alex Bregman is willing to do something similar, because that's the market right now. Here's our poll question. Do you want the Tigers to sign Alex Bregman? Yes, no matter what. No, or yes, but as long as the contract is 4 years or less. That's the poll question. You can vote as often as you like at XB Mornings on Twitter, and we'll give you the results tomorrow in the 8 o'clock hour. We're just getting started. Stay with us. This is X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network, and we're proudly brought to you this hour by Ferris Coffee.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest
He's been that guy all season long, being able to make clutch plays, whether it's shots, free throws, finding his teammates, block shots. Like, you go on and on about the way that, he handles himself in winning time. And that's what makes him special.
That's J.B. Bickerstaff after the loss by 3 points to Cleveland because of Darius Garland's just past midcourt heave that dropped. Saw a lot of deep threes throughout the NBA last night. It was pretty impressive. Cade Cunningham, he was talking about Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham finishes with a game-high 38. Only 1 turnover, 9 assists, 7 boards. Sure, he didn't shoot great. 38% personally. Hit some shots late, especially that 3-pointer with 16 seconds left. But he's either scored or assisted on 10 consecutive points down the stretch to get the Pistons to within 3, 105-102. They trailed most of the game. So he was really, really good. He continues to impress. When you watch a player who he's been really consistent. That's what I like about him. When you watch a player who's been as consistent as he has been all season long, I think sometimes for us, it's hard to evaluate to the point where can he get better? Because every player is going to have off shooting nights. That's just the way the game works. I don't care if you're the best shooter. Steph Curry struggles at times, all right? Ray Allen struggled at times. Reggie Miller missed some shots he wished he had made. It happens, all right? Now, I'm not saying Cade Cunningham is those types of shooters. I'm just talking about in the sport of basketball, you're going to have some issues once in a while because you're not feeling it. And there's other guys who suddenly they caught fire and you can't figure it out, right? Cade Cunningham has been, I think, really consistent for this team all season long. I love his demeanor. I'm not sure about the code in the post-game press conference and post-game interviews, but whatever, he's staying warm.
That's across the league.
That's across the league. But he is, he's been everything you had hoped he would be, I think, as a 1-1 so far. I mean, the balance, all the things that if you watched him at Okie State, you saw this type of fluidity and balance in his game. And this is what he has brought to the table. Now, there's some who might argue it took him a little time for us to recognize this. It's fair to say in 2024-25, that he has blossomed into the player you expected him to be. You have been patient with him to reach that point. Yes, I think for the most part, no question. I don't know anybody who sat there and said he's a bust. I don't know anybody who said I would trade him. I don't know anybody who said I wish they had chosen somebody else. Because you have been patient with him because this team hasn't been in a position to win. It's almost to the point where you feel sorry for the guy. Holy crap. It's not that he's the same player, okay? It's the Steve Yzerman situation. When Steve Yzerman came to the Red Wings, he was great from the get-go. But we were really patient with Steve Yzerman for an extended period of time because we knew the Red Wings sucked. They did. They were terrible when he got here. So much so, they were giving away cars. Couldn't get to anybody at Joe Louis Arena. Now, even today, if the team's not good, and they've been really good, as you know, under Todd McClellan, 15-4-1, you can't find a seat. Anyway, I think we've been very patient with him because the team hasn't been very good. Are we like that with everybody? No, we're not. But Cade Cunningham has paid off for all of us. And I think now more and more people are saying, hey, this is a guy who is a leader. You can literally build around him. And that's the other part of his game that I suppose doesn't get nearly the notoriety is his leadership, his willingness to be a leader. I've said this time and time again. Just because you're a 1-1 doesn't make you a leader. Just because you're the best player doesn't make you a leader either. But he has become much more vocal, and I think it's been much needed here for the Pistons. Even in the loss, he was still the best player on the floor. All right, Myles Garrett. We talked about this the other day, and the Free Press, Dave Burkett, is in New Orleans for the Super Bowl on Sunday. So he found Myles Garrett, who was making, various pit row stops at the Super Bowl media day and media row and all that other stuff. I've been there. It's an absolute ridiculous mayhem on a regular basis. When you're, especially in the morning, you're looking around, you're like, how much? Suddenly people start walking around and you're like, hey, let's grab this person. Let's grab this person. Make sure you allow them the chance to promote their sponsorship deal. And they do that, which is great. I mean, it's an awesome setup because everybody in the media wants to go there from that standpoint, because you get to interview a lot of different players and a lot of different people in general, former, I'm not saying players in the Super Bowl, but players who are in the league and they're walking around and so on and so forth. So Garrett is walking around, and he sat down with USA Today, and he sat down with Dave Burkett for a short period of time. And Burkett asked him the obvious question: what do you think about being traded to the Lions, if possibly? Is that a scenario that you can envision? And he wouldn't bite, obviously. This is what surprised me. The Detroit Free Press ran and that should have been our poll question, but the Free Press ran a little bit of a poll and asked readers if they would trade at least, that's the key, at least 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. How many people do you think? And look, they got almost 5,000 votes, which, not a huge sample size there. Not when Ford Field is packed every single Sunday for home games, and you're getting 65,000 people there. So it's not a huge sample size, but people took the time. What do you think the percentage was of those who said they would give up at least 2 first rounders, knowing that your team is going to be good? They're not going to stink.
They're late round picks, is what you're saying.
Late first round choices. Knowing that at least 2 first rounders, what do you think the percentage was of those people who thought, yeah, I would do that?
I'd hope it's at least 70%.
It's 60%. In fact, the rest of the percentage said the Lions don't need him at all.
Yeah, that's foolish to me.
Look, I think fans can feel however they want. What is it about draft picks that people feel you got to hold on to?
That's what I think it is. I think it's just the label.
Brad Holmes' ability to use the draft picks. That's first and foremost. Okay. In the past, I think most people would say in a heartbeat. But because you've got a guy in the front office who knows what the hell he's doing, finally, it's the first time it's happened. Okay. It's ridiculous. It is.
It is. No, it is.
You've got a competent person. And don't give me this, well, other guys have made good first round picks.
No.
They drafted Matthew Stafford first round and they drafted Calvin Johnson. No. Look, with all due respect to a lot of those people, when you're drafting really high, a lot of people in the media and fans could have made those choices. There might be another pick or two that you would have wanted to have. I've got friends in this business who have said for years, oh, this guy's going to be better than this guy. And they were wrong. But at least that guy was a decent pick. So it's not like you were going to take Brogan Roback out of Eastern Michigan in the first round. All right. So they did take a guy, or 2 or 3 who have been very good picks in the past. We're talking about depth. We're talking about the right player for your system. We're talking about character guys. We're talking about players later in the draft who are going to contribute. The Lions and their fan base finally have a guy like that. So I think that's a huge part of it. This guy is one of the best at what he does, and he's 29 years old, and he's got incentive like nobody believes. When we come back, I'm going to talk about that incentive. It's amazing to me how our mind plays tricks or does things opposite of what we've said before. That's coming up next on X's and Bros. Again, this hour of our program.
Attention Michigan fans, it isn't a Michigan game day without a Michigan-made beer. Founders Brewing Company, a proud supporter of the University of Michigan Athletics Department, has the perfect beer for you with their Michigan Pilsner. Crafted with only the best locally sourced Michigan hops and the highest quality ingredients to deliver a smooth, crisp taste. Upgrade your game day traditions with their easy drinking Michigan Pilsner. Founders Brewing Company, proud sponsor of Michigan Athletics. Welcome to Craft.
Coming right at you, the excitement you've been waiting for. Eagle Casino and Sports, the mobile casino made in Michigan, made for Michigan. Play slots and table games with live dealers at one exciting site, playeagle.com. Sign up today and get a match deposit up to $1,500. That's right, up to $1,500 plus 100 free spins. Eagle Casino and Sports. Go to playeagle.com and start winning today. Must be 21 or older and in Michigan to play.
Saturday, April 5th, Soaring Eagle Casino becomes Daryl's house. Don't miss a legend live, Daryl Hall, with special guest Glenn Kilbrook of Squeeze. Tickets start at $62 and are on sale now at the box office and etix.com. Make your favorite Sarah smile. Daryl Hall with Glenn Kilbrook, Saturday, April 5th at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, SoaringEagleCasino.com.
Huge here with an invitation for everybody to join Van Andel Institute and Fox Motors Hockey for Hockey Fights Cancer at Southside Ice Arena in Byron Center on February 21st through the 23rd. Join the fun and help raise awareness and funds research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's. Learn more at foxmotorshockey.com. That is foxmotorshockey.com.
I wanted to make sure I was completely detached, and they felt the same way I did. And I feel like everyone's kind of on the same page, and felt like it was time to at least speak on something that was near and dear to my heart, and have a lot of love for relationships, winning those big games, and winning Lombardis, and we haven't had the opportunity to do that, and that's all I'm asking for.
Good bass there in the Ozzy Osbourne song. Welcome back. That's Myles Garrett, by the way. Myles Garrett talking about his situation in Cleveland and now opening the door for a trade. How does the trade work? We talked a lot about it yesterday. I've told you as soon as we found out about it, what I thought would be a good move for the Lions, what they would have to give up, what I'd be willing to give up. Let's put it that way. Myles Garrett and the Free Press had this article yesterday after a poll question results of would you give up at least 2 first-rounders for Myles Garrett. I was stunned at the percentage of people who said yes. 60%, that's it. I thought it would be much higher. I mean, considering the feedback we got during the trade deadline on what Detroit was willing to offer, and this wasn't just fans now, this was members of the media, what they were willing to offer Las Vegas for Max Crosby. Answer me this. Take away Max Crosby being from the state of Michigan. Emotion and where you're from really doesn't have anything to do with this. I'm glad Detroit chose Aiden Hutchinson, not because he's from Divine Child and the University of Michigan, but because he's the best player. That's all I care about. I root for everybody who went to Michigan, Michigan State, Grand Valley, the regional schools, Ferris State, all of them, okay? I'm glad Robert Spillane is a middle linebacker for the Las Vegas Raiders and is a captain. That's awesome. He went to Western Michigan. That's really cool. I'm glad Fisk had a really good rookie year with the Rams, that even though he went to Florida State, he's from Western Michigan. I rooted for Antonio Brown because he went to Central Michigan. I root for Max Crosby. He went to Eastern Michigan. I root for Kirk Cousins, went to Michigan State. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I want them on my team all the time. I can root for them. They went to school here in the state, whether they went to high school or collegiately. So I'm going to root for them, unless they're up against, my team and trying to beat my team. That doesn't matter to me. What I care about most is how are they going to help this club, the Detroit Lions. So many people wanted Max Crosby, and maybe some of it was emotion. I hope most of it's because he's a damn good football player. Would you rather have Max Crosby or Myles Garrett?
Myles Garrett for sure.
Okay, for sure. And that's a quick answer. It's the right answer, at least in my mind. If you are willing, for some people, to give up 3, which I thought was ridiculous, but 3 first-round picks for Max Crosby, how in the world can you only get 60% people saying that I would give up at least 2 first-rounders for Myles Garrett, who's viewed as the best defensive end in football? Is that debatable? You're damn right it's debatable. But he's in the conversation. And there's really only about 4 or 5 guys who are in that conversation. And one of those guys was headed for Defensive Player of the Year if he kept it up, Aiden Hutchinson, on your team, out with a broken leg. You never know how those things are going to repair themselves, by the way. Obviously due for a new contract. You want him on your team at that position. Can you imagine? Just think about it for a minute. Can you imagine the amount of pressure on the opposition, offensive line, quarterback, offensive coordinator, headaches by the head coach, all that stuff, if you had Hutchinson, McNeil, and Myles Garrett? It would be immense, right? How in the world do you say, what wouldn't you give up? Just about for a guy like that, reasonable for a guy like Myles Garrett, 29 years old, 14 sacks in each of the last 2 years, all the things, Defensive Player of the Year, not far removed from that. Guys playing basically by himself.
13 sacks a game for his career. That's remarkable.
How he's going to help Aiden Hutchinson, because that was the motto in Cleveland, right? That he was helping Zadarius Smith, made Zadarius Smith a much more attractive trade option for the Lions and other teams. And it's fair, okay? I thought Zadarius Smith is a decent player on his own. Sure didn't have the impact with the Lions that I thought he would. Think about how much Aiden Hutchinson is going to help Myles Garrett. You have 2 elite defensive ends. When's the last time that happened?
elite. We're talking like 2 top 5 guys, not just like 2 of the top 10.
Right.
2 top 5 guys.
How do you not see that? And like I said before, you're going to be drafting 28, 29, 30th, somewhere around there.
Yeah, how valuable are
the
those
next
picks?
2 years? I mean, that to me, it's an absolute no-brainer with the draft picks. Now, what comes after that is a little different. But it is interesting how quickly we become infatuated with a certain aspect in sports. We think Brad Holmes, because of his amazing draft picks, and I think most of it had to do with a couple of years ago with Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta and Jack Campbell, because I don't know anybody who loved all three. You may have loved one guy or another, but nobody I ever talked to, I don't care if they're in the media or fan base, loved all three. In fact, I would have made this wager. Did you love all three or did you hate all three? More people would have said the latter. Brian Branch, brilliant move, right? Penei Sewell, brilliant move. A lot of people were like, come on. I mean, you're going to use a tackle. I mean, you draft that high, you got to get skill players. The excuses were unbelievable. And now the backtracking, you can't get much faster. It's like Deion Sanders in a back pedal when he used to play. That's how quickly people are doing this. So you look at it, that situation, and I think because of their trust, and it's well earned in Brad Holmes, you just feel like, I don't want to part with that because he's going to make our team better. Is there a player you've watched in college football this year on the defensive line who could make, even if Detroit were picking high, could make the impact that a Myles Garrett could? The number one defensive player is probably Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Could he do that? The second rated defensive player along the defensive line coming out of college is Mason Graham. They have him as a top 5 pick. Really? Okay. I like him. I thought he was a good player at Michigan. Did I think he was a top 5 pick? Never did I think that. And I'll root for him. I hope he does well. But Myles Garrett I'm not going to say he's a generational player, but Myles Garrett is a game-changing player. He's a franchise player. And I'm stunned that the Free Press only got 60% of the people saying, yeah, I'd give up at least a couple of draft picks. I would absolutely do that, and it wouldn't take long to do it. And I would throw in a player and even maybe a mid-round draft pick for Myles Garrett. The other guy out there who might be out there because he's looking for a new deal, and if he doesn't get it, he's going to do what Myles Garrett says, and that's Trey Hendrickson. I want you to remind yourself of these two instances. Similar, same position, franchises, not in similar situations because Cincinnati's got 2 elite players. I think T. Higgins is really good too, but 2 elite players on their offense where Cleveland doesn't have anything close to that. Burrow and Jamar Chase, Cleveland with question mark and question mark and question mark and going on. But they're from the same state. They play the same position, and they're in a similar situation. Trey Hendrickson, who led the league in sacks this year, is, I think, one of the most underrated defensive ends. Like Trent just said, both Hutchinson and Garrett, top 5 at their position. Yes, I said they're elite. Who else is in that conversation? Bosa in San Francisco, perhaps Mack in the Chargers, probably on the downside of his career a little bit. Max Crosby right in Las Vegas. TJ Watt in Pittsburgh. What about Trey Hendrickson? Trey Hendrickson says to the Dan Patrick show, no, it was to the Pat McAfee show, I'm sorry, on ESPN yesterday. Again, Super Bowl, press row, although he's got his own row. It's an incredible setup. Hendrickson comes in, and they're talking about his contract because he wants a new one. Or he wants one, I should say, not necessarily a new one, because his contract is through next season. So he wants a contract that's going to take him past next season. They want stability. It's hard to argue with that, especially in the game of football. Basketball, it's guaranteed. Baseball, it's guaranteed. Football, it's not.
Well, and a lot of these guys, we're seeing it more and more, right? They're holding out, sticking up for themselves. I feel like more than any other era.
Out. Right. He's not even holding out. He's made it known.
He's just voicing his, right.
And
there's a lot of time.
He said it before last year, too. I mean, if you wanted to leverage, I suppose this would be more leverage, right? But if he wanted to, he could have sat out last year. Players have done that before. We saw with Hassan Reddick, for crying out loud, and he agreed to the trade from the Eagles to the Jets and chose to sit out, lose millions and millions of dollars, alienate his fan base, alienate his teammates, for crying out loud. And he said he wanted a new contract, and he had agreed to the trade in the first place, knowing that he didn't have a new contract, knowing, according to the Jets anyway, that he had to what? We got to see how you're going to play first. You know what Hendrickson has given you. You just saw it this past year, and it's the same team. He wants a new contract. If not, he wants to be traded. Now, you can snarl at that, and you can raise your eyebrows and shake your head all you want, but this is the leverage certain superstar players, and when you're as good as he is, you're probably at least on the verge of superstardom. If he's not, he's definitely a star. He's a guy who he's going to use his leverage. He's not unique in that situation. Trent Williams did it in San Francisco, didn't he? And he did it to his advantage. Who else did it in San Francisco? Brandon Ayuk, not to his advantage. So this is not uncommon when it comes to the National Football League. It's a different scenario. What would you give up to Cincinnati for a guy like Trey Hendrickson? Because you wouldn't have to give up nearly as much. I don't think you'd have to give up, at least in my world, when I said for a guy like Myles Garrett, I'd give up 2 first-round picks, future first-rounders, a mid-round pick, 4th, and a player. Jamison Williams, who, by the way, did a wonderful gesture just recently that I read about in helping the less fortunate. So kudos to him. If I'm going to take shots at him for not playing hard and doing some stupid things on the field, how about the things that he does really well in the community? Jamison Williams, congratulations. Thank you for being such an upstanding and well-representative of the Detroit Lions off the field. A good, strong representative of the Detroit Lions anyway. So anyway, with Hendrickson, you wouldn't have to give up that much. Not as much as you would with Myles Garrett, even though Hendrickson is as productive as they come. He's got Sam Hubbard on the other side. How many people are saying how much Hubbard has helped Trey Hendrickson, or vice versa? Not nearly as much. He doesn't get the ink at all. The guys who get the ink, and you can understand why to a certain extent, I just think Hendrickson should be involved in that conversation. The guys who get the ink are the TJ Watts of the world, the Myles Garrett, Max Crosby primarily because he is not just really productive, but he's willing to speak out, and he's willing to get after quarterbacks, jaw with them a little bit, and he's the guy you want mic'd up when you go into a game. If you're a producer and a director saying, all right, we're going to mic somebody up from the Las Vegas Raiders, who do you want it to be? It's Max Crosby, without question. It helps to be the best player on that team, even though that team's not very good, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. So Hendrickson says, look, he wants a new deal. He likes being in Cincinnati. He and his wife like being in Cincinnati. Myles Garrett said the same thing about Cleveland. When I hear fans always say, I want a guy who wants to be here, I'm not sure you do. What you really want is you want a really good player. That trumps everything. I know it makes you feel better inside that this guy says great things about Detroit and your state and so on and so forth, but that's not really what you want. People used to say that all the time during baseball season. I said, if they love it here so much, why don't they stay here? They're not staying here year-round. Are the football players living here year-round? Some of them, but most of them, no, they're not. Are the basketball players living here year-round? Nope, they're not. They'll come in for an appearance here or there, but most of them aren't living here year-round. They've got enough money, they're living someplace else, too. Look at where they're training, especially baseball players. I'm not saying that that's wrong. In the wintertime, where are you going to train? Here or Arizona? Here or Florida? Here or Nashville? Detroit? Los Angeles? I'm training in Arizona, man. I'm going to train where I can get outside and play on a regular basis.
Right. And any fan who acts like they don't understand that decision. I mean, if I was here, I'd stick around. I'm a city guy.
Right.
Okay. Much easier said than done.
No, you wouldn't. You know who usually lives here year round is a lot of hockey players. Because it's the summertime, right? I mean, you're going to enjoy the summer. You're playing during the wintertime. You're going to enjoy the summer. You're going to go up north. You're going to do those different things. But most of those athletes, they're going back to where they live, where they're from. Matthew Stafford had a really nice house in Bloomfield Hills on the lake. It's gorgeous. Right down the lake from one of my daughter's friends. He loved it here. People couldn't wait to get him out of here. I mean, he talked about how much he loved being here in Detroit, how he wanted to win here in Detroit. So don't give me this, I want a guy who wants to be here. No, you don't. You want a player who's going to help your team win a championship. If Javier Baez came out tomorrow and said, I love being here, would that matter to you?
No, that's a great example, too, because I think everyone in their car right now is like, hell no.
It would not matter. See, it's awesome that Cade Cunningham signed that contract extension, right? A lot of money, who wouldn't? But immediately, that endeared him to the Detroit Pistons and Detroit sports fan base. See, he wants to be here even though this team stinks. Fair enough. And it's a good example. Matthew Stafford deferred his contract twice so they could sign players. Did that matter to you in the end? No, it didn't. Because you didn't feel like he could win the big game. Our phone number on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text us, Sports Radio, to 21,000. This hour of X's and Bros, proudly brought to you by our friends at Ferris Coffee in Grand Rapids, but available in all 50 states.
Friday, April 4th at Soaring Eagle Casino. Los Lobos.
you know me, there are certain phrases that I don't like. There's another phrase being used by a national writer when it comes to Detroit Tigers. We'll get to that coming up here on X's and Bros. Glad you're with us on this Thursday morning. I'm Matt Shepard. Our phone number on the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. And Meyer proudly sponsors this hour of X's and Bros. In case you missed it, Pistons lose. I don't want to say it's heartbreaking fashion. They had to come back for the most part all night long to get it done. Cade Cunningham did everything he could. 38, 9 and 7, 9 assists, 7 boards. Didn't shoot great, but down the stretch he was fantastic. He really was. But Cleveland wins it on a buzzer beater at the logo, for crying out loud, from Darius Garland. It didn't help that Detroit shot 40% from the floor. It didn't help that Cleveland shot 48% and hit 16 threes. Detroit now a game under 500 overall and a game under 500 at home. I can be selective in my use of examples. First and foremost, I'm calling myself out. I'm laying it to you right now, straight out. Shep, you'd be very selective about certain things. Fair enough. You're probably right in that regard. Home court advantage. How's it working? You're under 500 at home, okay? It's a team you and I view as, look, they're so much better than last year. It's not even close. So forget about last year. Last 5 years, more wins, right? I like watching them play. You know how I feel about Trajan Langdon, huge upgrade. You know how I feel about J.B. Bickerstaff. If you were to listen to this show before he was even hired, I said he would be the right guy for this job because of how he develops young players. We talked about that with Dwayne Casey earlier in the week. All right. You know how I feel about Cade Cunningham and how I like Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley. I like the way this roster is constructed for the most part. Okay. Yes, they have some holes. They've got to fix those holes, and I'm confident they will. So you know all that. But we hear, oh, home court advantage is really big. How's it been big? How important was home field for the Lions this year? All of them. Now, you could turn around and say, what about Michigan State basketball? They're undefeated at home. Michigan basketball, after winning last night over Oregon by a bucket. That was big, right? They're undefeated at home. We can take certain selective examples if we want. My example's legit. Detroit is under 500 at home. They have more road wins, right? They have 25 wins overall. They have 12 home wins. They have more road kills than they do home wins. You tell me how important it is. Maybe that's the wrong example. I'm willing to listen. I'm not closed-minded when it comes to this stuff. If somebody feels like home court is really that important, Cleveland, you could say it. Come on, Cleveland, 24-4, Shep. That's their home record. You don't think they want home court event? I'm not saying I wouldn't want it. I'm saying let's not use that as a reason for our argument all the time. And I've been guilty of it too. What's the advantage of home court in the NBA? Yeah, I would say I think hockey is last. But okay. Here's the advantage for baseball. You get the last at bats. Which okay.
You still got to get that.
You
still got to hit the ball.
At bat in the ninth. Okay, so but you get this is what I hear from people all the time. You get the last at bat. All right. Well, so
that's fair.
You bat at the bottom instead of the ninth. All right. Hockey, you get the last. You get the chance for the last line shift, so you can match your players up against the other. I think that's significant.
Yeah.
What's the advantage in football and basketball? Home field, home court, in your mind?
Well, in football, it's the crowd because you can, force false starts and, that kind of thing. Delay of game. Yeah, it happens a little bit. There's some numbers to back that sort of thing up, but it's not as big as we give credence to. Yeah. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, totally legitimate.
And the case in point is the Lions from this year. Ford Field was unbelievable. I mean, we spent time on this show talking about how great the atmosphere was at Ford Field, and Sean McVay talking about how, he's played games at New Orleans in the playoffs, and he thought Detroit was louder. That's all great. It really didn't matter when it came down to it, unfortunately.
Buffalo, 8-0 at home. So It absolutely was important for Buffalo. I bet you many people feel like had they played in Kansas or played in Buffalo rather than Kansas City, and Buffalo had beaten them in Buffalo earlier this year, that was a big deal. Baltimore won their division. They won as many games on the road as they did at home. Kansas City was undefeated at home, 8-0. They won 7 games on the road. That's pretty damn good. Okay, Houston. I'm looking at division winners. Houston won as many games on the road as they did at home. I'm not trying to tell you it's not significant. I'm just telling you it's not the be all end all. Tampa won their division, won as many games on the road as they did at home. The Rams, they won their division, won as many games on the road as they did at home. It didn't turn out to be the big difference maker that a lot of people make it out to be. That's all. And I'm sure it's different for sports. And before you jump all over me, I would remind you, I wanted home field. I wanted it more for the fans because I'm confident that this team would have won on the road. I want it more for fans than anything else because I wanted you to witness in person, Trent and his brother, my sons. I wanted them to be able to say, I've gone to an NFC championship game at Ford Field. That's what I wanted. But I wanted it more for the fans than the players. I didn't think it was the be-all, end-all. And I still don't think it is. I think great teams, and that's what you're aspiring to be, I think great teams can find ways to win on the road. How many times have you been in a series where you're like, let's just close it out, right? Pistons won, I know, way back in the day. Pistons won their second NBA championship on the road.
Vinnie Johnson.
Yeah. The Red Wings won their championship over the Capitals in Washington. This is not unique. Okay?
The Pistons' first championship was on the road, too, if I'm not mistaken. It was at the Forum. They swept, so it's a little different, but yeah.
LA. Yeah, it was. So I know we always wanted it home. I know those are the ideal scenarios for our fan base. We've got to feel like, I look for it too. We all do, okay? You and I having a conversation, we're having a beer at a restaurant, at a bar, whatever, BJ's in Lansing, and you and I say to each other, what's it going to take? What's the difference between the Lions and the Commanders? Eventually, if not right away, eventually, you're going to get to home field. One of us is going to say, and it's at home, because we just think that's
home field advantage.
Where you're more comfortable.
Yeah.
We feel like you've got everything. And I've said this before. Look, when you are on the road and you're staying in a hotel, you don't have the confines of what you're used to, even in your home stadium, where you're getting the opportunity to get that, whether it be a massage, bad joke, Justin Tucker, or some type of, treatment that you would at your home stadium.
Your routine.
So it is a factor. I'm not saying it's not a factor. I just don't look at it as the most important factor.
Well, how about this?
Involved as many people were at Little Caesars Arena last night, doing everything they could to help urge their team on, because we like to think we matter, and we do. There's no doubt. I mean, players have admitted it. Absolutely, it plays a role. But we like to think we're that important, where they were urging the Pistons on, and they got them there, right? That was part of it. They could feed the energy. They could feel it. You could sense it coming through the television set.
Yep.
And in the end, Darius Garland hitting from midcourt, did it matter? No.
And in the NFL specifically, Shep, I think it's important too. How often do we, when we're talking about the 1 seed, I feel like we almost make a bigger deal about home field advantage than we do about the rest at times when people are talking about it. Well, if they get that 1 seed, they get home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Yeah. We said it here. Now, here's what you could do, Trent. You could turn around and say, Kansas City was the 1 seed. You think it mattered that they played at Arrowhead? Or whatever the hell it's called now? Yes.
Yeah,
I think it did. So just because it didn't work for the Lions doesn't mean it didn't work for Kansas City.
It's not going to hurt you, but it can absolutely help you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, as I said, I don't think it's the be all end all. It sure as hell didn't help Baltimore last year, did it? Nope, it did not. But it may have helped San Francisco. Our phone number on the Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. When we come back, a national writer gets caught in the window trap again. We'll discuss that right after this.
Hey, Michigan, let's go.
Does anyone in here think they played one of their better games? Will probably played one of his better games. For the most part, everybody just kind of played an average game for their standards. We got to keep fighting, keep getting better, not getting bored with practice. 3 games in 7 days. We're going on the road for a very, very tough environment on Saturday. And then we got Purdue coming back here on Tuesday. So, guys, there's not a lot of time to practice. Let's get our minds fresh. Let's keep our bodies fresh. And we're going to need everybody in this room very, very soon at some point. Somebody's got to step up. Different night.
Texas and BrO's Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. This hour of our show brought to you by Meyer. Michigan had 5 guys in double figures. Will Cheddar led the way with 17. Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf each had 15. Wolf had a double-double, his second in a row, and his Big Ten leading 10th of the year. The difference last night for Michigan, they only had 5 free throw attempts in the first half. Oregon didn't have any. Michigan went 17 of 21 from the stripe. Oregon went 9 of 11. Both made the same number of three-pointers. Neither team shot the ball all that well. We talked yesterday about what is hurting MSU. Their three-point shooting.
Very obviously, yes.
They're last in the Big Ten in three-point shooting. What's hurting Michigan? It's their turnovers.
That's what I was going to guess, but I didn't.
Under John Beilein, they were among the best, not in the Big Ten, but in the nation. And we're
Much
talking,
more disciplined.
We're talking about maybe 7.5, 8 turnovers a game. Michigan had 15 cough-ups last night. They are at about 13 per game, and they are among the worst in the Big Ten in that category. If Michigan State wants to go to a little bit of a deep run in the NCAA tournament, and we all think they're capable, primarily because of their coach more than anything else, and their defense and their rebounding, they need to be better from beyond the arc. If Michigan wants to make a deep run, they better start treasuring the basketball better. I don't want to sit there and create a stir after a win because you'll take it. 17 wins is nice. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. They've beaten some good teams so far this year. We've seen them play really well. We've seen them play very poorly. But I like the fact that they can bounce back from difficult nights. They better start taking care of the basketball a little bit better because they're way too loose with it right now.
They're more than 2 turnovers per game at the bottom. I mean, they're near 15 turnovers per game. And for Michigan State, right, with the 3-point percentage, they're over 2.2 percentage points,
ahead of the next worst team is what
it's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
teams
time
have a
to make
glaring
that
weakness.
up. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to take a Herculean effort for you to do that. And at some point, we look at sports teams and we say, this is who they are. Sometimes we get fooled. Lions in the playoffs. But this is who they are. And I wonder if this is who Michigan State and Michigan are. When you have this is a large sample size now, Trent. We're talking about 22 games, and their numbers are what they are.
Yeah, it's not quite home stretch, but we're getting there.
Yep, that's defined them. Can they fix it? Or are you crossing your fingers hoping tonight, please just take care of the basketball because you can't afford it against this team? Whatever. Saw a tweet from Buster Olney, and I think he fell into a bit of a media trap. Here's what he tweeted yesterday. About the Tigers' serious pursuit of Alex Bregman. Detroit is in a window to win right now. Ding, 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 right away. Second sentence made me go, oof. Timeout. The Tigers' window is now? I expected them to win the division last year. Made that very clear. I expect them to win the division this year. Kansas City it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kansas City, especially since they traded one of the guys who's a reliable starter. It's not like he's in the Cy Young conversation, but he's a reliable starter in Brady Singer. You're trying to tell me that the window for the Tigers is right now. he continued and said, Tarek Skubal, who is in the conversation for best pitcher on the planet, is eligible for free agency after 2026. As of right now, he is. If this organization knows what the hell they're doing, they would lock him up on a multi-year extension. You notice I didn't say long-term deal. Tarek Skubal's 29. How long is too long? For pitchers, it's a little different than everyday players. If I said to you, Tarek Skubal wanted a 7-year contract that would take him, in other words, wipe this year out and take him to 36, would you do it? I would.
Yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah, me too.
Got to make sure the money's right.
On
But
the
that
money. Yeah,
goes
you're
without
right.
saying.
Depending on the money's right. But yes, okay. I'm not one of those guys who gets so wrapped up in this is what this guy did this last year, so we got to, really help him and make sure he stays here. No, because last year was his best year. I don't think it's an anomaly, but I don't think it's necessarily the trend either, because it has not been a trend yet, and he's 29. So if I said I would like a 6, maybe a 7. 7 is the most I would go, but I would prefer a 5 or a 6. He and his agent aren't going to want that. I understand that. You've got to give something to get something. Maybe you go less money, a little bit longer term. If I went more money, shorter term, that's what I would prefer, but it's not my money. It's now Chris Ilitch's and his wife's money since they're divorced. Now, Skubal's 29. So just so we're clear here, Buster Olney, a national writer, says their window is now. He also, by the way, added in this text or tweet, Jack Flaherty under contract for at least 1 year. Suddenly, a guy they just signed this week means that their window is now. Like they don't have guys who can eventually be a 2. Jackson Job's going to be a 1. You're going to have a 1 and a 1B. Don't give me this crap that Jack Flaherty only has a 1-year window here in Detroit because he can opt out after this year, so you better take advantage of it now. Bull crap. Skubal's 29. Job is 23. Madden is 24. Cole Keith is 24. Jace Young, if you think he's part of the future, is 24, soon to be 25 this year. Kerry Carpenter's 27, soon to be 28 this year. This is all, these guys, their birthdays, I don't have, I can't send them birthday cards, so I don't know exactly what date they are.
They're not on your calendar.
This year, they're going to be, Riley Green's going to be 25. He's 24 right now. Parker Meadows is 25. Wenzel Perez, if you think he's part of the mix, is 25. Justin Henry Malloy is 25. Reese Olson is 25. These guys are all in their early to mid 20s, except for Skubal. And you're telling me the window is now? Now, eventually, you and I will have to decide and think to ourselves, when would that be appropriate? When would you say the window phrase is appropriate? It's coming. I'm not going to sit there and ridicule Buster Olney and say, you're completely off base. I don't agree with the phrase. I don't like the phrase. But I sure as hell don't think, if you said to me, the window to win right now for this team is it, who would that team be? I wouldn't say the Detroit Tigers. Would I like it to happen? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily. But do I think that, yes, this team's window is right now? No. At 24, with the core of their team being 24 or 25, don't stop with the, Jack Flaherty and Tommy Kahnle and Gleyber Torres and Alex Scott. These guys are on 1-year deals with a player option for Flaherty. They're 1-year deals. That doesn't mean that automatically the window slides open just a little bit more. Window being open refers to your core players. Detroit's core players are still young players. 3 years of Major League Baseball experience, and you think you got to do it right now? What's your thought? The Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. This, X's and Bros, on the Michigan Sports Network.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay
Here's what I ask people all the time, especially in the media. Please, just be accountable. Last night, somebody who I follow on social media wrote, Michigan is about to do Michigan things. Here comes the choke. And I thought, what has Dusty May done in his first year at Michigan that makes you think they're going to choke? Do you honestly believe that Michigan under Juwan Howard was the same team under Dusty May? Did you believe Juwan Howard's team was the same as his predecessor, John Beilein, whose team was the same as Tommy Amaker, whose team was – I don't understand that. Have they played games this year that have been basically your typical script that Michigan follows where they choke things away? Why do we label teams based on what they've done in the past when there's different players? If it's the same team, I get it. If it's the same coach, I can understand it. And if it's the same scenario against a similar opponent, yeah, I'm probably with you. It's not in any of it. So you want to say that, that's cool. That's what social media has become. I'm going to send out this wild tweet that's going to make everybody go, I'm going to either use that for fuel in my talk show, I'm going to use it as a conversation starter, or I'm going to say, you know what? That guy's got guts. This is what he said. He was way ahead of the pack. Well, guess what? You were wrong. Where's the follow-up that says, hey, good for them? Oh, that's right. It's not there. I know some people will probably say, then what are you following them for? That's a fair point. That's a really fair point. Follow us at XB Mornings. That is the Twitter handle. You can watch us streaming live on X at XB Mornings and streaming on YouTube and Facebook at X's and Bros. The Meyer Hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. This hour of our show proudly brought to you by Meyer. We've got some texts, so let's get to those texts. Fire away.
Pistons are becoming the dumping area for bad contracts. Hope they're getting lots of draft picks. Troy Weaver should have been doing this, and we would have been further along. Really like Trajan Langdon and his stamp on the Pistons so far.
What's the dumping, when we say dumping area for bad contracts? Who's the bad contract?
I think Josh Richardson last night. I believe the Pistons made a trade to acquire him. They didn't give up anything. They're just taking on his money. Other than that, I don't really think there's a bad contract on the roster, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people don't love.
I thought they got KJ Martin.
They did. There was a second trade. The Pistons were actually involved in the Jimmy Butler trade last night. There were four teams involved.
Yeah, that's right. That's
a
3-team trade. That's right.
They took on Josh Richardson from the Heat. Didn't give up anything.
So that's what they're referring to. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, I suppose that's. Have they become this dumping ground that I'm unaware of? I mean, with just because it happened at the trade deadline, or because it happened yesterday, I don't know. I guess I don't look at it like that. But I think the point to the text is, why didn't Troy Weaver do more of this stuff? I don't think it matters if your significant moves work out. The most significant moves, let's face it, the reason you think Trajan Langdon's done a good job is because he signed Malik Beasley, he signed Tim Hardaway, and he signed Tobias Harris. Maybe not so much Harris. And he brought back Simone Fontecchio. But it's really the Beasley one. There are certain moves that win you over. They just are. I mean, we said this earlier today about Brad Holmes. You get a little leeway when you're making certain draft picks like he's made, or signing certain players, or swinging certain trades. So when you sign a guy like Kevin Zeitler, and he's a steady force along your best unit, yes, I said unit, this year, then you're going to get some built-in credibility. When you sign Penei Sewell after drafting him, and you sign Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you sign certain other players to extended deals, Jared Goff, then you're going to have some built-in credibility. When you draft Brian Branch in the second round and he becomes an all-pro, you're going to get some credibility. When you are told these are bad picks and they prove out to be not just good picks, but borderline great picks with Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta and Jack Campbell, you get built-in credibility. I think the built-in credibility for Trajan Langdon, at least in the first year, right? That's all we can measure him by, is the fact that he signed a few guys that has helped fix them with some of their shooting woes and has gotten them in the playoff picture. They're not in this playoff picture without Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. specifically because of their ability to knock down threes. I mean, Malik Beasley is going to set a franchise record for most threes in a season. He's going to blow by Sadiq Bey's franchise record. So I think there's some built-in credibility there. All right, some more text. Go ahead.
Another Pistons text says, this team gave themselves a chance last night by playing defense. I'll take that. They're starting to learn how to compete. Last year would have folded like a cheap tent. They're watchable now.
Yeah, good. That's a good one.
I think that's a good temperature on how a lot of the fan base thinks.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do. And
because I think over the last
I think the texter is absolutely right too. It does help. It depends on when we're watching a team. When it's been this god awful for the last close to a decade,
right?
You'll be happy with anything that resembles a 500 basketball team,
which this team is.
Same thing without the Tigers, right? I mean, the Tigers needed a 32-11, 31-11 stretch down the stretch to make a wild card, and everybody was acting like this is 1984 all over again, and it really wasn't even close. But because you've seen such bad baseball for an extended period of time, this gave you a breath of fresh air. And that's the same way with the Pistons. And I get it. And I think you're right there. I like watching them too. When a team shoots close to 50% against you, I don't know if that's great defense, but you did force 23 turnovers. They were competitive. How long do we say it's good enough for me that my team is competitive down the stretch against the best team in the East, arguably the best team in basketball?
And they were down Donovan Mitchell too, for what it's worth. They had a chance to win that game. This texter's exactly right. The defense and some clutch free throws, clutch plays from Cade Cunningham brought you back into the game. But ultimately, you are what you are. And like you said, Shep, they're flirting with 500. Now they're a game below. Got to try to get back above. I think they play the Sixers tomorrow, so we'll continue to monitor it.
They play Philly tomorrow, and that should be a win. Look, we said the same thing about Atlanta. They should beat Atlanta, and they lost to Atlanta.
And by the way,
just unbelievable, and that was another home game.
Yeah, I was just going to say a call back to our last segment is both these last games that you've lost on game-winning shots came at home, unfortunately.
Yeah. And one many people feel like is a justifiable loss to Cleveland because they have 41 wins. They get the most wins in the NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, by the way, had 50 last night for OKC, the best team in the West. However, as you just mentioned, no Donovan Mitchell. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Cleveland, but if they've got Donovan Mitchell, and I don't believe you automatically insert, well, he averages 23 points a game, so making another
tack those on.
That's not the way it works. Okay,
right.
But they are a much more difficult team to handle when their best player is out. If Detroit were without Cade Cunningham and you got to win, that's gravy. That is a massive pot of gravy all over your Thanksgiving Day turkey, right? Absolutely. So I do believe that there's something to be said for that. Detroit was in that game. They hung in there. I give them a lot of credit for coming back. They did it with Cade Cunningham struggling to shoot and Malik Beasley having arguably his worst shooting performance of the year. Didn't make a three, 1 for 8, 25 minutes, and yet you were still in the game. So it depends on how you want to look at it. Are you a glass half full guy or a glass half empty guy? I can be both, to be honest with you. I can be both. Pistons lose at the buzzer 118 115. Darius Garland hits one from a Caitlin Clark-like midcourt strike. Michigan dominant inside. They outscored the Ducks 36-24, beat them by 4. Danny Wolf with a double-double. Vlad Golden had 15 points as well. So 30 of Michigan's 80 coming from their twin bigs. Those guys are going to be tough to handle. Tough to handle in the NCAA tournament. And the thing I like most about Danny Wolf is his ability to handle the basketball, his ability to come up the floor. I mean, he's taking guys off the dribble, and he's 7 feet. It's unique. How many guys have you ever seen? Like, I thought when I was a kid, Hakeem Olajuwon is one of the best centers I've ever watched. His footwork, his shoulder shaking, his ball faking. He, as a 7-footer, looked as close to a guard as I could remember growing up. Now, a little different with Dirk Nowitzki, a little different with a few other people. I mean,
Jokic.
Jokic, yes. I mean, I think he's a
better, he handles the
better
ball
passer than he is ball handler. I don't think
That's
he handles
fair.
the ball great, but he's a great passer. Danny Wolf is not the equivalent. I'm not saying he's going to be okay. Don't take this out of context. I'm just saying for big men, right? Danny Wolf made a couple of moves last night where not only is he bringing the ball up the floor, and not just the middle of the floor, he's bringing up the side, which requires you then to scan the defense and make a move toward the middle of the floor with decking the ball. That's not an easy thing to do. He was on the wing. He's taking a guy down low. Then he spins on him, takes him in the lane. Another time, he goes big to big screen, a lob for Golden for a jam. Another time where he spins a guy, gets him 2 feet deep, then step back and hits a 3. I don't care whether you like Michigan or not. And I've said this about MSU. I don't care whether you like them or not. You can really appreciate how they play team basketball and how they, buy into their principles. I don't care whether you like Michigan or not. Don't tell me your favorite team, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, I don't care, wouldn't want a big guy like this. And if you don't want a big guy like this, you're letting your emotions get in the way. So shame on you. The dude can handle. I'm not saying he's going to be the first overall pick, but he's a tough handle for anybody moving forward. All right, more text. Go ahead. Oh, we'll take the caller instead. Okay. I thought we were going to more texts. All right. Who do we got on the line?
Yeah, sorry about that. We got Zach on the line. He has some comments on the Pistons.
What's up, Zach?
Morning, Shep.
Morning, sir.
I did send a text in, but I thought I'd call in real quick before work. And the Pistons, how long do you go? I know we talked about Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart and stuff like that, but how long do we go with paint only bigs? I mean, you just described Wolf in the athleticism and the stuff that he does. And I mean, Mobley dropping 30 last night. And how long do you go with that? Because we're relying on shooters. And
that's a great question.
No threat there in the big.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And really, last night Detroit only played with one big. Jalen Duren in their starting lineup. How do you make up for that? Right? He had 10 boards. I think he had 8 rebounds. And it's not just Mobley. It's not just Evan Mobley for Cleveland who had 30 points. But I think Jared Allen is a really good player. Both those guys can stretch the floor. That's what you're looking for, right? That's today's NBA. And I'm with you. I don't think you can go much longer. I like Jalen Duren for his role. The problem with him, and he's a really good rebounder, and he's a shot alterer. He can alter shots. He had only 1 block last night, but he alters shots. All right. He's really athletic. He's quick. But his offensive limitations bog you down. So there's no doubt about that. He's not making many shots outside of 4 feet. He's a glass cleaner. You can afford guys like that if you have bigs who can stretch the floor. So I think it's a great point, Zach. Other people have brought it up via text or phone calls to this show in the past, and I think you're all dead on. You've got to find a guy, and they're not easy. It's not easy to find. I'm not telling you it is, but you've got a developer. You've got to find a guy who can force guys, big guys, outside a little bit become a shooting threat from you'd like at least 16, 18 feet, wouldn't you? They don't necessarily have to shoot three. I'm not asking you to be Dirk Nowitzki. I'm asking you to be more than just a garbage collector inside where you're putting things back at 2 feet, and that's how you're getting your 3 field goals a night. That's all. And I think.
And one last thing, real quick.
Yeah.
It just seems like the Pistons have been stuck in this for a while. I mean, Jalen Duren, he's just a younger version of maybe not as good, but of Drummond. I mean, Drummond, he would run the floor. He would run the floor better, but he's still in that 4 foot range. I mean, Drummond was an amazing rebounder and stuff like that, but you don't have anybody. And I said Mobley because he's a freak. I mean, he's really good, and Jared Allen is too. But it's just you sit in the paint and you're going to get in foul trouble. I mean, Jalen Duren has been in foul trouble in the first quarter, 2 or 3 fouls so quickly, and then you have Paul Reed in there who is like, it's just frustrating because there's no threat there's no threat from our bigs at all.
I agree 100% with you. That's such a great call. Great call. Thanks for the phone call. You're right. You used the right example. There's no doubt. Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley, by the way, in case people don't know, he came out in the same draft as Cade Cunningham. Mobley was the 3rd overall pick. I'm not saying I'd want him instead of Cade Cunningham. I'm just giving you reference there. I didn't think he would be as good as he's been so far. He's only 23 years old. But I didn't think he would be as good as he's been coming out of USC. Did you see that coming? I don't think many people did. That turns out to be a pretty good draft if you think about it. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes was Rookie of the Year. He's a good player.
Right.
Okay. Jalen Suggs, who, full disclosure, that's who I wanted. I thought he was really good. I would have been wrong. Josh Giddey came out. Franz Wagner was in that draft. There's some pretty good players in your top 10. So, but this guy's been awesome. The beauty for Cleveland is, they've got that 1-2 punch. When you got Donovan Mitchell and you got Evan Mobley, and both are in their primes, and you could even say Mobley hasn't quite reached his prime, but he sure as hell plays like it, doesn't he? It's a problem. There's no doubt that the Pistons have to address it. And I'm hoping that they can do that via the draft, because it's going to be really hard to do it because so many teams treasure those types of players. It's going to be tough to do it in a trade. Thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it, Zach. 866-838-4843. You can text the program Sports Radio to 21,000 on a Thursday morning.
Saturday, April 5th, Soaring Eagle Casino becomes Daryl's house. Don't miss a legend live. Daryl Hall with special guest Glenn Kilbrook of Squeeze.
some facts and come back and see me. Get some facts and come back and see me. Don't throw out salaries or other things. Get some facts and come back and see me.
You can't handle the truth. I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats. We need more dogs.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We weren't good. There's no sense of asking me things about the game. I'm telling you, we laid an egg, so I'm not going to break it down for you. He sucked. He sucked. We laid an egg. That's all I have to say, guys. I'm sorry. I'm not going to break it down for you. Nothing went well for us. It's on us. We have to figure it out, and we will.
It's showtime. Here on X's and Bros on this Thursday morning. Hope all is well. This hour brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Get there, and especially to their sportsbook, Ascend. Really cool place to watch a game. It would be the ideal place for you to watch Super Bowl 59 this Sunday when the Chiefs and the Eagles clash. Meyer Hotline 866-838-4843. Text the program Sports Radio to 21,000. Thanks for listening wherever it is you may be. Maybe you're in Cadillac, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Holland, Petoskey, Charlevoix, Traverse City, Lansing, or on X, Facebook, and YouTube as well. The Pistons lose to the Cavs. Michigan beats Oregon. Pistons make a trade and get a couple of players.
KJ Martin.
What's that?
KJ Martin's the first one, and then they got Josh Richardson.
Yeah, KJ Martin and Josh Richardson. Not that that's going to be the be-all, end-all, but adds to their depth a little bit. Red Wings are off until Saturday when they will take on Tampa. And Pete Alonso returns to the Mets on a 2-year deal worth $54 million. And the second year is a player option, which might open the door, I believe, in these types of situations when agents recognize the landscape of what's going on in their sport. And they see our guy doesn't want to wait too long. Could he miss some spring training? It's possible. It's happened before and happened a year ago, but it's not ideal, right? I mean, you need to play games. Basketball, hockey, football, it's practices as you lead up to it. Baseball, it's about playing games on a regular basis, especially in spring training. So you don't want to miss as much as perhaps Alex Bregman is possibly positioned to miss. So they might consider a shorter-term deal, which to me would be ideal for the Tigers. If Alex Bregman and his crew were willing to take a 4-year contract, I would be all over it. Here's our poll question for the day, and it really revolves around Myles Garrett. Would you give up at least 2 first-rounders for Myles Garrett? It's a simple yes or no. You can vote as often as you like. We'll give you the results tomorrow in the 8 o'clock hour, and we will give you the results from yesterday's poll question as well coming up here. Just out of curiosity, as we look at the Super Bowl, if I asked you, this kicker has the most field goals in Super Bowl history, who would you say it is?
Adam Vinatieri.
That's would have been my guess. We're both wrong.
Really?
It's Harrison Butker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Chiefs kicker, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense.
Yep. It's 9. He's got 9. Steven Gostkowski and Adam Vinatieri are tied for second with 7. I found that interesting.
That is interesting. I feel like in 20 years, we'll look back and maybe Harrison Butker would be the obvious guess, kind of how Vinatieri's the obvious guess right now. Just given how many, Super Bowls he played in.
I think it's important. Yeah, because Vinatieri with the Patriots and the Colts. I think it's important to note just because there's a lot of people out there getting ready for prop bets for Super Bowl, and people like Super Bowl trivia. That's a good little nugget for your Super Bowl trivia. And speaking of the NFL, let me just say this before we get to, the daily wager and the poll question from yesterday. Good for the National Football League Players Association. Their executive director is a guy by the name of Lloyd Howell Jr. I don't know if you caught this yesterday. Roger Goodell, I've said this for a long time. The NFL, it's not trailblazing. A lot of people have said this, but Roger Goodell has his eyes on an 18-game schedule. I think what he wants to do is go down to 2 preseason games, and he thinks by cutting off another preseason game, much like he did from 4 to 3, that he can add another one to the regular season. I've said I think it's a joke. I think it's awful. I mean, I love football as much as you and everybody else combined. I could watch it every single night. I miss it right now. I'll miss it in June as well. My feeling right now as they get ready for the Super Bowl is not going to be any different than June. I want to watch the Lions every weekend. And I used to say that even when they sucked. There was a point in time during the game when they sucked, where at halftime I said, enough is enough. I'm going to go rake leaves. And that's the last thing I want to do on this earth is rake leaves. But there was a time where I said that. Especially when they're good, you want to watch them more and more. But Roger Goodell has his eye on an 18-game regular season. And here's what Lloyd Howell Jr. said yesterday. He rejected Goodell's claims that safety data doesn't discourage expanding the regular season. Does Roger Goodell and the National Football League truly believe that players, their agents, even coaches, members of the front office in the Players Association, or even fans believe that playing another game isn't going to mean more possible harm? Does he really think we're that stupid? Of course, playing another game means that safety is a concern. Here's what Howell said. Frankly, we're not sure how he's reaching that conclusion based on the data we've been accessed. No one wants to play an 18th game. No one. The only people who want an 18th game are the people who don't have to suit up. He didn't say that. I added that. He said 17 games is already, for many of the guys, too long. 17 games is also so lengthy that you're still dealing with injuries going into the next season. Excellent point. I've said this about college football. I know people think with me to go, oh, give me a break. Look, it's not like I played at a high level. I played, Class A, no big deal in high school. It takes, but talking to players, college players and pros, I don't think anybody has any idea of what it takes to play football for a living. I'm not going to cry for them because I know they make a lot of money. I want you to know something. When you've got these college football players, they're working out in the morning, they're going to class, they're working out again, they're watching film. It's a lot to absorb. It's a ton. In the National Football League, you are getting in car crashes on a regular basis. And you are messing with people's lives, not their livelihood, their lives for the bottom dollar. How much is enough for the National Football? How much is enough for me? How much is enough for you? It's ridiculous. He continued, this is how. So there are a variety of issues that hang off of the length of the season before any formal negotiations. I would strongly encourage the NFLPA and the players who make that up to stay strong. I would love 18 games. I'd love 19. I'd love 20. That's selfish and it's wrong.
Because we love football.
Right. It's wrong. It comes a point in time where you got to recognize that what's most important is keeping around these players you love watching. And just because you can't do it every weekend, even though you'd like to, it's not possible. This is getting out of hand. Give them the opportunity. It's been all about TV. It's been all about the almighty dollar. This doesn't have a damn thing to do with the players and their players' safety. I throw up in my mouth every time Roger Goodell welcomes a new player to the NFL draft and gives them this big hug. The reason he's giving him a hug is because he looks at him like he looks at his wallet. What do I got inside here? You're now a $50 bill to me. Our phone number is 866-838-4843. We'll get to the Daily Wager and the results from yesterday's poll question when we come back.
You've heard him on Kill Tony, the #1 live podcast in the world.
Wasting Away by Anti-Ghost. Welcome back on this Thursday, 18 after the hour. Glad you're with us this hour, brought to you by our friends at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. The phone number on the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843, or you can text us, Sports Radio, to 21,000. I do want to get to some more text, but I first have to get to the results of yesterday's poll question and the daily wager. The poll question was this: who is MSU's biggest challenge in the Big Ten? Is it Michigan? Is it Purdue? Is it Illinois? Is it Maryland? Now, remember this real quick. Purdue did win at Iowa the other day. Really impressive win for them. I like going there. Wouldn't want to live there. Like going there. I do like their building. It's not super intimidating. I bet it is for wrestling, but it's not super intimidating. Usually, they're pretty tough at home. It was a good win for Purdue. Illinois lost at Rutgers yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. That was the second game of the Big Ten doubleheader. They lost by 9 at Rutgers. And Michigan was a winner over Oregon. So, tell me, what were the final results of the poll question of Michigan State's biggest battle in the Big Ten, and what team will challenge them the most?
61% still say it's Purdue.
Okay.
30% say Michigan, 7% for Illinois, 2% for Maryland. So really a two-man race there.
Yeah, I figured that because Purdue's good, and Mackey's a tough place. And, the win at Iowa, somebody who had 30. I was trying to remember who had 30 for Purdue in that game. You know who it was? It was Braden Smith at 31. He might be the Big Ten Player of the Year, by the way. The guy, a lot of people probably, I wouldn't say they haven't heard of him, but I mean, if you follow Big Ten basketball, you've heard of him. But I think there's a lot of people who probably, Braden Smith, really? He'd be Big Ten Player. He's really good. Really good. College player. I don't know if he's going to be a good pro. All right, get to the daily wager. It's brought to you by our friends at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort and their sportsbook, Ascend. Perfect place to go watch the Super Bowl or any event. Maybe you're watching Michigan play last night and then the Pistons right afterwards. Not sure, but it's a good place for you and your friends to hang out with really good food right there inside Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. All right, the daily wager. How'd you do yesterday? I think it had something to do with Jalen Duren. And what do you got for us tonight?
Yeah, I had Jalen Duren's over 1.5 blocks, so I needed 2 out of them. He only had 1. So protecting the rim, altering shots, but I don't win money, Shep.
No, nobody wins money if they bet with you. Now, last week you were really good. I think you were 4-0-1 last week.
That's correct. And this week so far 0-3.
Yeah, this week it's a massive struggle. So what do you have for us here tonight? Now, every time this happens, I worry about your buddy's grandfather. Like, I'd love to have your buddy's grandfather on the air one day. Tell me, what is it about Trent that you don't trust when it comes to making these bets on the daily wager? Anyway, what do you have for us tonight? Where are you going with it?
And we remind you, you can always go the other way. You don't like the way I'm going, go the other way. Tonight, we've got the Mavericks at Celtics. The Celtics are 10.5-point favorites. I just think that's a big number, especially considering Anthony Davis might make his Mavericks debut tonight. And Kyrie Irving hates the Celtics' guts. We talk a little bit about where players find motivation from and stuff. I just think that's a big number. Mavericks can keep this thing a single-digit game. So give me the Mavericks to cover the 10.5 points tonight in Boston.
Dallas is barely over 500, and Boston's the second-best team in the East. Boston is at home. I'm giving people perspective here. Boston is better on the road. Remember last year we talked about how great they were at home?
Yeah.
Remember they had, I think they had a set a franchise record for number of
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Right. You know what their record is at home this year?
What is it?
16-9. On the road.
Good, not great.
They are 20-6. 20-6.
So that kind of that gives me better chance, right? In theory.
Yes, I'm trying to help you here. In fact,
I'll take it.
In fact, Boston has more road wins than anybody else in the NBA. So them being at home, maybe Trent's onto something here, folks. Dallas, the Kyrie Irving thing, that's possible. I guess I'm really looking forward to Jimmy Butler's first game against Miami after the trade to Golden State.
It can't hurt, I guess, is my point.
I don't know how much the Kyrie. I'm trying to think of how much it really matters that he doesn't like Boston, goes back there and wants to beat the daylights out of him. Could Boston turn around and say, you know what, we don't like you, want to beat the daylights out of you?
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know if players feel that way against another player who left, unless he left on bad terms. I don't think that would outweigh the player who's coming back emotionally, trying to win in front of fans who didn't believe in him or an organization that he didn't necessarily trust.
Fans who he's flipping the double bird to behind his back on the inbound play. Remember that? Do you remember that or no?
No, I don't remember.
Kyrie Irving when he was with the Nets and he held up the double birds behind him to the Celtics fans. I don't know. I'm just saying it can't hurt the hatred he has for him. And I have to imagine if Anthony Davis does play, I think this line might move a little bit. Like if we find out Anthony Davis is playing tonight, it could move to an 8.5 point line instead of 10.5. So I'm trying to jump on it now.
Incentive is what we're doing. We're looking for incentive. All right. The NFL, as much as I just ripped on Roger Goodell and his desire to have an 18th game, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I will say this. They do a lot right. The league does a lot of things right. Taking care of their players is not one of them. Looking long-term for the health of their players is not one of them. But they do so many different things right. NFL draft, keeping their sport in the news on a regular basis. I mean, 2 weeks of Super Bowl exhaustion for most of us would be like, oh, enough, please. I'm tired of it, right? Not for the National Football League. There are so many storylines that you can get into. Here's something that they've done right. They're playing for the first time ever in Australia. The Los Angeles Rams are going to be designated as the team's league's first game in Australia. So when that takes place, I'm not exactly sure. We just know it's in 2026. They're going to put a regular season game in Australia. Now, the thing I have to caution, because they've done this in London quite a bit. They did it last year. Jacksonville felt like London was their second home, for crying out loud. They played 2 weeks in a row there. I wonder how many people in the stands are NFL affiliated and how many are fans, true NFL fans from that city. I don't know the answer to that, but it does make me wonder just a little bit. You know, like the NFL Pro Bowl. Do you think those people there are from Orlando and bought a ticket and said, man, this is going to be awesome. This is something I've had highlighted on my calendar for a long time. I got something on my phone that goes ding, ding, because the Pro Bowl is coming up. No. I think most of those people, much like Major League Baseball's home run derby, are associated with the league. Now, the home run derby, I shouldn't say most, a lot of them, okay? Because the home run derby, I think, is a lot of fans. Hell, we saw that at Comerica Park, didn't we? A lot of them were Detroit Tigers fans. But they do regulate tickets and certain sections for the league itself. National Football League, going to Australia is really cool. Who they're going to play, I don't know, okay? Because it's a home game. It's considered a home game. And it's one of their 9 home games next year. So that means they're going to get either the Cardinals, the Niners, the Seahawks, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Chargers, or it could be somebody from the NFC North, depending on who it is, or an AFC East team. Those are their home games. This is not unique, but it is, I think, something that's done well. More and more leagues are doing this. We'll get to that and why it's important on the other side here on X's and Bros on a Thursday morning.
Big wins are just one word away with Scrabble your way to winning at Soaring Eagle.
Today's February 6th. It's Thursday, February 6th. You know what yesterday was?
Wednesday, February 5th.
Oh, Wednesday, February 5th. It was National Signing Day. We kind of lost sight of that.
Kind of a big deal.
It used to be.
Yeah, it used to be a bigger deal.
Because of the what's bigger? Early signing day in December, transfer portal, or National Signing Day?
Oh, transfer portal for sure. I mean, it's it runs the world right now in college sports.
It has not ruined. Some people would say it's ruined college athletics.
That's what you can feel that way. That's okay.
Who actually come out and say to me, I don't like college sports anymore because of this. So I immediately asked them straight to their face, did you think players should be paid? Be honest. 10 years ago, were you complaining and saying players should be paid? Most, if not all of them, say yes. And I said, okay, what did you expect? And here's, I think, without them saying it, I'm reading into it. Here's what they usually thought. And I think it's logical to think this way until you remember that the NCAA is made up of morons. The logic was you're going to have guardrails on this. There's going to be certain limits. They don't have any. It's a joke. It's the Wild Wild West.
Yeah. It's pay for play.
The things that I said 15 years ago was going to happen.
It's not NIL, it's pay for play.
Paid? Absolutely. Should there be a limit? Some would say that's not America, and there should be no limit. But you've gotten into gray areas now where there's no turning back, or it's going to be very difficult to turn back. What used to be really cool on a National Signing Day, and people would have shows dedicated to this, kids at their high schools putting on caps and tricking you and doing all this stuff now is kind of resulted in one big social media. I'm going to announce it on my Twitter handle and all this other stuff. And now, because of the transfer portal and because of the early signing, February 5th doesn't mean that much anymore. And it's really too bad. I know we have to adapt. I know we have to move on. I know we can't always have it the way it used to be. Everything changes in life, from your family holidays to National Signing Day. I get it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, and it's really too bad because what did I just say to Trent? What's more important? He immediately said the transfer portal. Like, I think more people looking at it, I was looking at ESPN and who had the best classes, from their ESPN top 300 players. Michigan's in the top 10. Texas is number 2. I think Georgia's 1. Anyway, a lot of the same teams are in their 10. So what do? I look for the regional schools, but they're not signing any ESPN top 300 usually. But I look at Michigan and Michigan State. So I've seen Michigan's, I think they were 8. Michigan State's 59. And I thought for a moment, oh, that's too bad. That sucks. I thought Jonathan Smith would, and then I have to realize, wait a minute. First of all, it's ESPN's top 300, which to me means absolutely nothing.
It's not gospel.
Okay. Second, he's in his second year. What if he just uses the transfer portal better than anybody? And I really hated myself for thinking that, but I can't help but think about it.
Yeah, I think that's
because
the
if
idea.
You're not going to get the high-end 5-star guys that everybody thinks is vital. I had this debate with Braylon Edwards about this, and he kind of won me over. You got to get some, but I don't think it's the be-all, end-all. There's plenty of examples of guys who weren't highly recruited out of high school who became really good college players and eventually became really good pros. However, you don't want that to be the method of your recruiting madness. So you got to get some guys. They can make up for it by getting transfers.
Think about it, Shep. If you need a receiver, if you need a big wideout for your quarterback, you want to help your quarterback out
right away.
The logic has changed so much. Instead of being like, okay, who are the freshmen and sophomores on the roster who could take a step this year? Instead, it's like, yeah, who's available? Let's go pay somebody to come over here as a redshirt senior
Think about this. Think about this. Bryce Underwood is the number 1 quarterback in the country. Flips from LSU to Michigan. Financial reasons primarily. But maybe there's more to that. Michigan goes out and gets a transfer quarterback because the number 1 quarterback in the country, like the same number 1 quarterback 2 years ago, It's not looked at as redshirting anymore. It's like, well, you're just not ready. We'll kind of ease you into it, but we don't want to lose you to a transfer portal. So we have to massage things a little bit. Arch Manning was more decorated than Bryce Underwood, just about, wasn't he? Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty damn good player. He's going to take over for Texas. I hope those kids, Arch Manning, Bryce Underwood, I hope they grow into it. I really do, because it's your chance to recruit a kid. You can say what you want about the NIL. I'm not a fan of it either. I know, but that's the way it is. These kids, if you're going to leave it open, should we blame the kid?
No.
Okay. So let's not blame the kid. Let's just blame the system right now. Instead of people going, the kid making $5 million. Okay, wait a minute. The system's open for him to do that.
What's he supposed to do? Not take it? Leave it on the table?
Answer yourself what you would do, okay? This is not corruption here. This is not the federal government where people are cheating and stealing on a regular basis at the behest of us. This is a kid saying, you know what? There's no guardrails. They don't tell me how much. Sure, I'll take the $5 million. Everybody would. But it's just too bad that big day of what used to be February 5th as the big day is now moved to December for early signing. And the transfer portal seems to be of more interest for people than the signings of young, talented players out of high school in the first place.
And you can't blame people, because that's just the state of the union for college sports right now, particularly football.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, I can blame people. I can say, look, there are still big people who are signing on February 5th. Why don't you focus on that? I can blame them, but it's probably not fair.
There's more of an impact on their team being made in the portal.
Football and college sports is now viewed. This is what it's become. Like the first year, you maybe it's not going to take the place of this, and then eventually you're like, yes, it is taking the place of this. And now you have to admit that's the way it is. You don't like change, but that's the way it is. All right, we were talking about the NFL going to Australia, and I think it's important. I think it's really cool. It's not like the NFL is going to have a team there someday, but you want to expose your sport as much as you possibly can to a global audience so you get more players and more football athletes, all right, from all around the world. Basketball does it probably better than any other sport. I mean, you got kids in Africa with all these NBA academies that are taking shape in all different parts of the globe. It's becoming huge. I mean, basketball in Australia is the second largest sport, I believe, behind soccer. At least it is in Brisbane. I know that. Anyway, so I think it's really important. I think it's a really good idea of what they've done. Major League Baseball is already an international sport. Hockey and basketball already international sports. And they have done this. And like the NFL has done it too, right? The NFL has played in London plenty of times. Major League Baseball has played a ton of games outside the U.S. The NBA has done it. And the NHL has done it. So this isn't unique, but playing a regular season game, I think usually outside of London, the NFL is playing preseason games outside the United States. Again, outside of the London series that they often have. Let's get to some texts. I want to make sure we get to those before we say goodbye on a Thursday morning. What do we got?
Yeah, we got a couple that are referring to our poll question. You can always vote on our poll question at XP Mornings on X. We asked you, would you give up 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett, at least? This one says, I don't know if you can trade them or not, but I think people also forget the Lions get 2 compensatory third-round picks for Aaron Glenn taking a head coaching job. The first-round picks are pretty much early second-round picks anyways, so package a couple of them up and get Hutch some help.
I'd forgotten that. Thank you.
I had too. Yeah, that's a good text right there.
Yeah, it's a really good text. I like that. What would you? The thing you have to ask yourself is what you'd surrender. You can't just say, "Yeah, I'd give them up." So that's why I got specific a couple of days ago for Myles Garrett. Bear with me here. Let's just say you trade 2 firsts, you trade a mid-round pick, and you trade. And I've used these examples, so I'll stick with it. Jameson Williams. You get Myles Garrett and a mid or late
4th, 5th,
4th or 5th.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you trade future late picks, 5th, 6th, to the Rams for Cooper Kupp. Would that work?
Yeah.
Sure. I think a lot of people would do that. And you could swing that. It probably would take more than a fifth or a sixth. But remember, I mean, this is the way it's played right now. LA's ready to move on. They've got their number one receiver in Puka Nacua. They may even move on from Matthew Stafford. I don't know, which would be very interesting for a team like, let's say, the Jets. But I digress. You look at that situation, you can fill that void because Jameson Williams, in 2 years he's going to be available for the big contract.
Yep.
Avoid that. Draft a young receiver. Trade for Cooper Kupp. Wouldn't cost you a ton. Okay, it's not like he's going to cost you a first-round pick. It won't cost you a second-round pick. I would guess at the most it would be a third or a fourth. At the most. I don't think you're going to have to give up a ton there. Rams need some picks. So
and they've announced they want to get rid of him. It's not like Myles Garrett's situation where he has no leverage.
The Rams have said, yes. The Rams have said, or at least Cooper Kupp has indicated that. He kind of, leaked that out of the bag.
And he's upset about it.
The other day. And he's disappointed with it. Sure. And you can understand why. But that's the way the NFL is. He's not a bad two, would he? I mean, he's good enough for you. I'm thinking long-term and short-term. The short-term is you get a hell of a receiver to take over. You get an impactful, almost a generational talent at defensive end. You also would probably give up, a couple of mid-round picks and a couple of first-rounders, but you'd also get a mid-round pick back. This is all me playing it out and thinking what it would take. There's no definitive answer to this on exactly what it would take, but I think that gets you involved in the conversation, and I would think that would make you better right away. And people talk about windows. That stays wide open for you with these players. All right, more text. Go ahead.
This one says, I'd rather see the Lions trade up to the top 5 for Mason Graham, a stud and will be on a rookie deal. He would help so much. What do you think, Shep?
I would say no to that.
You think that's an emotional text?
You're saying that's a Michigan fan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
So I would say
guessing.
no to that. I would say no to that. What's their biggest need? Pass rusher?
Yeah, or linebacker.
Okay. I view Mason Graham as a good player, a really good player. He's a hell of a college player. I don't know how good he is. He's going to be in the pro. He's not Aaron Donald. I don't think he's going to be the pass rusher you need. Can he plug holes in the run game? Absolutely. Will he have an occasional sack? Yeah, absolutely. Quarterback steps up into the pocket. He's more athletic than you think. I would much rather have Myles Garrett and surrender the 2 first-rounders and a mid-rounder and a player. That's what I'd rather do. What would you have to do to move up into the top? Some have speculated Mason Graham going 3rd overall. What would you have to give up to get to 3? You're going to have to give up a lot.
A ton.
Yeah, you're going to have to give up probably at least 2 firsts, just like you would for Garrett. I'll take the proven commodity who's still 29 into the prime of his career and fills the void better. Not that Mason Graham wouldn't make you better. I just think Myles Garrett makes you exponentially better.
He's an A+ pass rusher. You pair him with Hutch, who's an A.
And by the way, he's not just an A+ pass rusher. He's really good against the run too. Give him credit. I mean, he's the ultimate defensive end. There's a number of those guys like that.
TJ Watt.
He's one of them. It's as simple as that. He's 29. We're not talking about Von Miller here from 2 years ago. Go ahead, another text.
Back-to-back heartbreakers for the Pistons, but in a strange way, it feels good to feel something again with this team.
Oh, so they creating the emotion. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm with you on that. So I think what they're saying is even when you lose, you feel it. Whereas before you were numb to it.
Yeah,
Agreed.
you lose, you're pissed off.
I think that's well said. Yeah, I like that.
Because
they
you know
don't
what's at
have
stake.
to win in order for them to create an emotion from you. That's good. That's well put. I like that. That's it for the text. So we appreciate it very much. Really good stuff. Yeah, I love it. All right. By the way, real quick, I read an article. John Birdie, who had played for the Marlins and was with the Dodgers in the World Series last year and is no longer with the Dodgers. Instead, he has signed with the Chicago Cubs. He was reflecting on how poorly the Dodgers treated as probably makes him sound like a little bit of a snowflake, but he couldn't believe the chirping that the Dodgers were saying to the Yankees after beating them in the World Series this past year. And I thought to myself, okay, is that a big deal? Probably not. But somebody had written about this, and the way they wrote about it on SI.com is kind of interesting, but also what Birdie said. And he said this. He said, we won a lot of games last year. We won our division. We went out, took care of business against Kansas City and Cleveland. So we deserve to be there. Unfortunately, we didn't perform at our best. Well, the author of the article wrote this: benefiting from a down year in the American League, the Yankees down the Royals and the Guardians, the ALDS and the ALCS. Was last year, help me with this, because sometimes we all have memory burn and memory loss. The memory burn's a good thing. The memory loss is a bad thing. Was the American League down last year that I don't recall? Can somebody help me with that, please? Is it based on wins only? The National League had 3 90-game winners. The American League had 3 90-game winners. Were the Orioles good last year? I thought they were. Was Cleveland good last year? I thought they were.
ALCS.
Was Kansas City good last year?
Till the very end, yeah.
They were plus 91 in run differential. They're pretty damn good. Okay? Astros at 88 wins. Maybe not super impressive. A plus 91 in run differential. And before you go, yeah, but the Dodgers won, and the Phillies were this, the Phillies won 95 games. Phillies got bounced early too, man. I just, what do you mean it's a down year in the American League? The strong teams in the American League were pretty damn good. The Dodgers were just the best team. It's not like the Yankees didn't deserve to be there, or any of the teams from the American League in the playoffs deserve to be there. Thanks for your calls. Thanks for your texts. We're back with you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock here on X's and Bros across the